I would say this is probably one of my favourite potato recipes of all time. I'm even going to say I'll probably put it above the roast potato.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Which is a hard thing to say as a Brit towards a French recipe. And it's pomme boulangère, or baker's potatoes. And they are so good. Imagine like a cross between like a fondant potato and a gratin. Merge those two things together and you've got potato perfection. Sweet caramelised onions, and then layers of gooey unctuous potato, and then you've got that golden crispy top, right? Which, let's face it, is the best bit. And I'm going to show you how to make it. And it's really, really simple, but you do have to follow a few key steps. So make sure you watch the whole thing so you don't miss a step. First things first, you're going to want to caramelise your onions. Now, I didn't have time to do this today because of filming constraints, so I did this the night before. But it's super simple, but it does take time. Don't let anybody tell you that caramelised onions take like 10, 15, 20, even 30 minutes. It's going to take you a couple of hours. It might seem like a lot of effort, but you really want those nice golden caramelised onions at the end. If you try to rush it, you're going to get burger onions. So all you do is you take a couple of medium-sized onions. I don't like too much onion in my my potatoes boulangère. If you want more, just chuck another onion in, and then simply peel your onions and then slice them nice and thin. You don't want them too thick, you don't want them too thin. If they're too thin, they're going to burn. If they're too thick, they're not going to cook down. And then take a nice heavy pan, pop it on the hob, and you want it nice and low, like maybe like a 1 or a 2 on an electric hob, or like as low as you can get it on gas. Add your fat of choice. You can use like olive oil, veg oil, but in this case I used beef dripping just because I had some left. Then wedge in your onions, give them a bit of a stir, and then just pop a lid on and then leave those to gently cook for, like I say, about 1.5 hours, 2 hours, until they're just nice and soft and jammy. Give them a stir every like 10 to 15 minutes or so, and by the end of it you'll have beautiful, soft, caramelised onions, that nice brown colour, and they are ready to go. But if you're doing this the night before and you pop them in the fridge, make sure you gently warm them through before you start using them for the potatoes boulangère. Because if you try and use them straight out of the fridge, you know, they're all kind of solidified, all the fat's kind of hardened, and they'll be harder to work with. So just gently melt them through in a pan and you're good to go. Potato. It is quite important which potato variety that you use because you want something with a high starch content. I'm using King Edward, which is perfect for this. You could use Desiree, you could use Maris Piper. You want something with a high starch content because as the starch kind of leaches out of the potato, it's going to help everything kind of stick together. Now you can peel these if you want. I can't be arsed, so I'm just going to give them a quick wash. Just under a cold tap, just to get rid of any dirt. Now if you've got a mandolin, you're going to make short work of these potatoes real quick. I haven't got one, so I'm going to have to do it by hand. So all I'm going to do is just nip off the end. As I said, I'm going to get rid of any khaki bits like that. And then what I like to do is just turn it up on its end and just shave a little bit off the bottom. That's just going to make it sort of nice and sturdy, which will make it easier to slice. Any like bits like this you've got left over, don't chuck them away, you know, just fry them off, eat them as a snack. But there is some khaki bits in there, so I'm going to get rid of those. And then you want to slice the potatoes nice and thin. Don't cut them too thick because they won't cook through in time. And then try to keep them all the same thickness if you can.
1 week later.
Right, so I've got my spuds here. I've rattled through those fairly quickly really. And you want like a net weight of about 1.1 kilos. Okay, so in total, just to allow for any wastage, any kind of mouldy bits that you need to cut off, you're going to probably want about 1.2 kilos worth of whole potatoes. And obviously thickness-wise, well, it depends if you're using a mandolin or not, but try and aim for something like that, about that thickness. You should be able to still see your hand through the potato. That's what you want. At this point as well, I'm going to get my oven on to 150 degrees C, fan assisted. You don't want this too hot. Okay, you want these to cook nice and slow to begin with. And we're going to whack the heat up a little bit towards the end. And then really all this is a layering sort of game really. So I'm going to go with a layer of potatoes to start with. Try and use all like your rubbishy ones for the bottom because you don't need it to be pretty on the bottom. Just kind of scatter those around, kind of overlap them a little bit. The bottom isn't so important. Then I'm going to add a few clumps of our caramelised onions. As I said before, I don't like too much onion in mine. Little twist of pepper, not too much. Tiny pinch of salt, because remember there's going to be salt in that stock. And then using some fresh thyme, just kind of pick off the little, what are they called? Leaves, buds, whatever. You don't want the sticky bit in there. Just mush it up and sprinkle that over the top like so. Then here I've just got a saucepan of melted butter, and I'm just going to kind of dab over some of that, just random. It's a decadent dish this. It's not for the faint-hearted, but you know, everything in moderation, right? Then I'm going to simply repeat that, but this is where I'm going to start getting a little bit neater, I think. Just kind of go around the outside and just kind of overlap those potatoes. That's why it looks like there's a lot of potato, and there is. But remember, we've got quite a lot of layers to kind of cover, so you're going to need quite a few spuds. And then literally just repeat the same thing again. So caramelised onion, pepper, salt, a little bit of fresh thyme. This is where it starts to get a bit different, is I'm going to start adding a little bit of stock, just over like so. Obviously the stock is up to you. If you've got homemade, then this is going to like take it to a whole new level, but let's face it, a lot of us ain't got time for that. Again with the butter, just a few sort of dabs of that. And then just keep repeating that until we get to the top layer.
2,000 years later.
Right, so I'm on my final layer now, the top layer. Now, as you may notice, I haven't got quite enough potatoes to kind of finish this off. So if you find yourself in that situation, just slice up another potato. Or if, like me, you run out, you know, I've had to borrow a couple of spuds from my next door neighbour. They're not King Edward, but they will do. They will do in a pinch. So I'm going to go in with my final layer. Sometimes. But hey, you know what? This happens, doesn't it, in real life? These things happen. Then I'm going to add some more stock. And you want it to kind of come just under the potatoes, but also so you can actually see the stock. There we go. Actually, that's about bob on. Yeah, perfect. So you can still see the stock, but it's just sitting underneath the potatoes. Then a final spattering of our melted butter. And here's where I show you a little nifty trick. What we're going to do is make a cartouche. Now, this isn't some fancy chefy nonsense stuff. It genuinely works, right? For any kind of like stews, casseroles, things like this, the Boulangère potatoes, by putting a cartouche on top instead of a lid, it allows some of the steam and moisture to escape and evaporate, but it still locks in a lot of the flavour, and it allows things to still kind of caramelise and brown as well. So it's a really good technique. So really simple to do. So you just take a square piece of baking parchment or greaseproof paper. I've used both. I can't say I've noticed a discernible difference between the two. And then all you do is just fold it in half, turn it round, and then in half again. And then you've got the corner piece here. Fold it in half again, almost like making a paper aeroplane really. Flip it over, and then half again. And then take the pointy end and put it towards the centre, or thereabouts, of your dish, okay? And then just obviously mark it with your finger, and then just simply cut through that place where you marked it. And then I'm going to nip off just a little bit off the tip, okay? And then just kind of press it down. So you want it to kind of soak up a little bit of that stock really. You see you got that hole there, so that'll let out some of the moisture. And that should keep everything in place as well. And then this little puppy is ready for the oven. Ugh. And we're going to bake those in the oven with the cartouche on for about an hour. All the starch, the stock, the butter should just kind of homogenise and make it nice and glossy, nice and thick. But when they're about 80% there, so we'll say like, I don't know, when they're about 45 to 50 minutes in, we'll take the cartouche off and do the last step.
16 paranoia-filled days later.
Okay, so we're about 50 minutes in now. So we need to take these out. Ouch, hot. And at this point as well, I'm going to whack my oven up to about 180, 190. And I'm just going to carefully remove this baking parchment. And I'm just going to test with the point of a knife, just see if they're cooked. And yes, they are doing very well. And the stock is pretty much fully reduced because you want these to be nice and sticky. So what I'm going to do is just heat the last of this little bit of butter through and just splash over the remainder of that. And then just a little bit of salt and pepper because we didn't season the top layer because the pepper will just burn otherwise. And then get it straight back in the oven. Try not to dip your tea towel in it. For about another 15-20 minutes or so until that top of those potatoes are nice and golden and crispy. Right, we are ready to get this out. Oh shit, that's hot. Look at the state of that. Lovely golden and crispy. Could probably done with a bit more colour on the top in the centre, but I guess that's going to be dependent on your oven, but that is looking splendid. And I'm just going to finish off with a little sprinkling of fresh thyme. You want to put this on whilst it's in the oven on the top because it'll just burn. But what do we always say on this channel? Leave it alone, right? Because that's going to be nuclear in the centre of that as it's just come out of the oven. It's going to be hotter than the devil's arse crack. So leave it alone for like 5 minutes so all the stock and the butter can kind of reabsorb into that. And then we'll give it a quick taste. So there we are, there's our pomme boulangère, or baker's potatoes in English. Let's go in. Honestly, potatoes have never tasted so good. Got the nice sweet flavour from the onion. Potatoes have gone soft and creamy underneath, nice and crispy on the top, and they are ultra savoury. Really, really delicious. And they make a change for your Sunday roast, don't they? And as you saw from the video, they're not really that difficult to make. You just got to follow a few simple steps, a few little techniques, and you're going to have amazing boulangère potatoes at the end of it. But I shall love and leave you there, because I'm going to eat some more of those, because I've got enough to sink a flipping battleship there, haven't I? I might give some to my neighbours next door. But I'll see your gorgeous faces next time. Ta-ra for now.